and boom goes the dynamite.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new week. Welcome to a new start of Daily Dive and the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy 2023. I hope that you all have had a great start to the new year, and hopefully you're still following those resolutions and did not drop them by today, January 3rd. And so we've got a lot to get into today as we have our top story looking back on the Bandits' win over the Thunderbirds, as well as taking a look at the first start of the Professional Box Lacrosse Association. And we've got to give out our Daily Dive 3 stars of the weekend. But before we officially dive into our top story, have to take a moment to take a pause and send our thoughts and well wishes and prayers to Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills safety that is in critical condition in the hospital. If you haven't seen already, a tragic story, the way that he collapsed in the Bills game versus the Bengals Monday night. And so we love sports, but it's more than sports. And from the human element, this is a son, this is a brother, this is a friend, and he's in the hospital fighting for his life. So before we even get into sports, had to take a quick pause to send our prayers, strength, health to Damar Hamlin and to his family at this tough time. And Mike, I got to welcome you in, producer Mike. This shook me, I know, and has definitely shaken the world as we've been watching a 24-year-old collapse and now fighting for his life. Nobody should ever have to go through that. I wanted to give you a moment if you had any thoughts to share those at this time as well.
Yeah, I'll just sum it up by what I said on the Daily Dive Twitter account, because it's the best way I knew how to say it, is we love sports and the athletes that entertain us at the expense of their own health. I'd like to send my thoughts to the Bills player, Damar Hamlin, like you said, and everyone that is impacted by what's going on. And of course, we are hoping for the best because it's sports and we're entertained and that's why they get paid a bunch of money. But unfortunately, sometimes this stuff happens. It's brutal. So shout out to Damar Hamlin, everyone that knows him personally.
Yeah. And just a reminder that as much as we love to commentate and analyze and debate and discuss all things athletes, and even I tweeted out, like, this is not something we're not talking about fantasy teams. We're not talking about playoff contention. We're not talking about how the game is going to be rescheduled. The focus right now is that this young man is healthy and that is able to, survive this, because this going into cardiac arrest on the field is something that nobody should ever have to go through and experience. So our thoughts out to Damar Hamlin. Let's stay in Buffalo, talking about the Bandits. The Bandits defeated the Thunderbirds 18-13. We talked last week about if there was going to be a game that had shootout potential. We mentioned this one, but who would have thought 31 goals in this game? Josh Byrne finishes with 7 goals in a 12-point performance. Dane Smith puts up 10 points on the day, including 7 assists. I mean, the game tied at 8 at half, and it did not disappoint as our Daily Dive game of the week. Holy crap, Mike. What were you thinking watching this game unfold and just the way that both these teams were going at it for an 18-13 Bandits victory?
No, I think holy crap's a good way to put it. Listen, I'll seeing the final score, you're like, well, the Daily Dive game of the week wasn't fantastic, but then you're seeing it was tied at halftime. Hey, we did good again. Pats on the back. And I think you're the one who said that was the one most likely to be a shootout. So shout out to you on that one.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, look, we had everything. And I actually feel like I remember mentioning that this was going to be a close one, and then the Bandits were going to open things up a bit. I didn't expect 31 goals in the game.
Right.
But especially, I think the biggest thing we have to keep in mind is it's top talented attackers, but really great goalies as well. Like, that's to put up 31 goals is not easy in any game. For two teams to combine for that. So what a fantastic game to be tied at the half and then open up in the second half the way that it did. Wow.
Yeah, Halifax getting 13, I didn't expect that for sure. I think Josh Byrne, though, has had a great first, 3 games? Like, he's right there. Him and Dane are, like, playing very well these last 2 games. And they turned it around in a big way after the loss to Albany, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They've been on the redemption tour ever since and playing much better in these last 2 games. Now, looking at the other results that we saw, the Seals knocked off the Roughnecks 17-14. The Seals actually opened this one up, leading 13-5 at the half. And I remember at halftime, I was like, oh, crap. Not only was I wrong about my pick, but I was very wrong. But then shout out to Calgary for coming back, closing that gap a little bit, making it more competitive. We did see a lot going on. Frank Giuliano was relieved again. This time, Christopher Overiglieri steps the net between the pipes after Frank gave up 13 goals. Chris gave up just one in the final 9 minutes. And then on the other side, as I talked about, Calgary cutting that deficit with just over 7 minutes left. It seemed like they were out of it, and then they late had a surge, but it was not enough. Dane Dobie and Curtis Dixon in their return home combined for 17 points. And what about the way that Calgary welcomed them back? I was actually really moved by that and really impressed by the way the Rough House really welcomed them back in that big Seals win.
It's almost like maybe that's why they got off to such a hot start. Because I thought that they were going to come in there. Even Ryan Ballantyne, our guest last week, was like, a little bit holding the stick a little bit tighter. And they come in and say, hey, welcome back to home. It's, oh, cool, we're home then. Let's pepper the net. But no, you're right. And well deserved, because winning a championship in 2019 is still kind of fresh on the minds. But I guess the comeback fell short, like 7 minutes without a goal in the end, probably because, they had all that energy, used the home energy, and after that didn't have enough. Seals are insane. Seals have been part of these little these little crazy games, but this is just, Seals are good. This is a big win.
That's what we definitely take away from this. The Seals are good. We've seen them come back. We've seen them jump out to a hot start. We've seen a lot. Now, there's still some question marks between the pipes. I think they're still figuring that out between Chris and Frank. But on the field, offensively especially, lights out in what we've seen from the Seals. So I was happy that the Roughnecks at least were able to make this a game, because I was definitely disappointed. This was my game that I took a leap of faith, said Calgary was going to win playing at home. And so at least it ended up being a 3-goal game, and it looked better on paper than what it did in the first half. Now, our final game, we saw the Rush knock off Panther City 11-9. Was a close game. We said we weren't sure what we were going to see from Panther City, especially since their lone we saw their lone 2 wins earlier against Vegas. We weren't sure how they were going to really come out. They had a mammoth loss, but that was after playing the Desert Dogs. So you could say and give excuses that it wasn't them at 100%. But against Saskatchewan, were you impressed? Were you encouraged by what you saw from what Panther City strung together?
Panther City seems to be doing the rough tactic, like just keeping things, because they didn't really shoot a lot in this game. And Nick DeMood saw a lot of shots, as we're going to get to later on the show, sneak peek. But really, it's impressive when you have a team like them who's played obviously the most games. And a loss to the Mammoth barely, and a loss to the Rush is not bad at all, I'd say. But I was more disappointed with the Rush in this game. After having the Seals dead to rights, after beating the Mammoth the way they did, and then coming out into the SaskTel Center on New Year's Eve and just, I was kind of angry, because I feel like I have a 12-1. It's just sitting there, and it's like, guys, we gotta build on this. We can't. Maybe it was a long layoff. That's what I hope it is, but wasn't very happy with that. But shout out to Panther City, man. Great job. Maybe they get some home fans next game.
We keep trying to plug for Panther City fans to show up. But look, that's a great point you bring up about the Rush. That's a couple games now. They haven't been able to string together a full game. We've seen them in spurts look really good. As we talk about against the Seals, they jumped out and took the lead, and seemed like they were going to win that one before San Diego came back. And then this is a game against Panther City, not really anything impressive. So for Saskatchewan, a team that we've had some expectations on as possibly being a top team this season, and turning that corner right now in their initial games, not much to really go by. So more to talk about here, because we had the Professional Box Lacrosse Association. We got to get into the good and the bad. And then, as Mike just alluded to, we do have to give out our Daily Dive 3 stars of the weekend. So more to come on Daily Dive. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here in just a moment. Welcome back to Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington. Producer Mike and I have been talking about our top story of the weekend presented by the Daily Dive store, which you can find on our social media bios to check out the beanies, hoodies, merch that we are selling to support the only live lacrosse show Monday through Friday. Now, if you haven't already had a chance, I'm going to just take this moment to give a quick plug to also follow us and subscribe at Daily Dive Lax on social media and check out our show each and every day, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. Now, we've had a chance to break down the New Year's Eve weekend action in the games that we saw. Let's also talk about what's happening across other lacrosse news. Professional Box Lacrosse Association did have its debut. We saw, after much anticipation, what the product looks like. Now, the PBLA's mission is, and the goal is to really bring another high-energy indoor lacrosse product. We know that it was announced in June of 2022 that there would be 7 teams, different locations, and here we are. So we saw some differences in the PBLA, and some of those including smaller pads for goalies, some different rules where teams can have a penalty shot instead of playing 5-on-4. And the game of the week is able to be watched on Lacrosse TV and also on YouTube. So some unique aspects they're bringing to the rules and logistics. But only one game of the 4 scheduled could be watched by fans. So just to recap and what we did know and see, Jim Thorpe All-Americans beat Syracuse Spark Thursday in the league's debut, and that was a 15-12 result. We saw the Binghamton Bombers knock off the Elmira Renegades 15-14. The Hampton Hammerheads, love the alliteration there, defeated the Salem Mayhem 18-12. And then the New England Chowderheads defeated the Trenton Terror 16-15. And yes, that makes me want some New England clam chowder soup. As they knocked over the Trenton Terror, who are actually near where I grew up. So the locations of these East Coast PBLA matchups, what were your thoughts, Mike, looking back on everything from the debut and the opening weekend of PBLA action?
So I want to first give out to shout out our 16 YouTube subscribers now. Shout out to people who are helping to grow the game and the show. I really liked it. The game, I was tuning into a little bit of that Jim Thorpe All-Americans game against Syracuse Spark. Very impressive stuff. Like the Steven Stamp, the broadcaster, was talking about how they wanted to have the goalies be more athletic and be more involved, but not just going like this, having a big old shoulder pad up there. Some pretty athletic stuff. I also want to give a huge shout out to the local news stations in these areas that actually had the recaps. Like they had cameras at the game, even though you couldn't watch the game, which again, I don't like, but at least, they had them there and they could tell the local people about them. Apparently there were some nice turnouts for a few of them, but I thought I liked it. I feel like there could be some money there. And I feel like we could find some nice little, I'm going to start scouting some of these guys and saying, these guys should be in the NLL now. This box lacrosse, I loved it. I liked it a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting to think about another professional box lacrosse league. But hey, growing the game can be done in more than one way. And why not have more options for players to be able to play lacrosse? I also agree with you. It is odd that you can't watch the games live, but we know that most sports start in that space where it's hard to access games, it's hard to watch games. So at least knowing that there's news coverage and that fans are able to watch recaps and they're slowly introducing it to fans is encouraging. But that's kind of the MO. You think about like arena football and some of the smaller leagues across major sports. They kind of start in that space where you can only watch on YouTube, or you can only watch recaps, or you only have to watch in person live and buy the tickets. So more to come and more to grow for the PBLA.
Full disclosure, I would love to be a broadcaster. I see that there were cameras. I'm actually from Virginia, and I believe that's where one of these teams, I believe it's Salem Mayhem, were playing, I think. One of these teams was playing in Virginia, and I was like, hey.
Hampton.
Hampton
Hammerheads.
I knew that. Well, that's why they were playing Salem, to be fair.
Yes.
I would not mind doing some broadcasting for the PBLA. I think that would be so fun. I think that's a fun sport. It reminds me of basketball. I would love to do that. So I'm putting my name in the drawing book now.
Yeah, as you should. And actually, I'm wrong because I didn't realize that Salem is not playing. I was thinking Salem out of Massachusetts, but they also play out of Virginia. So you've got two teams, two options of teams that you can definitely work with. And look, exactly as you just mentioned, I love that this opens up more opportunities for even broadcasters. I know on the player side, it gives more teams, more leagues. That's 7 more teams you can possibly play on. But also on the work side, career wise, it gives broadcasters, officials, reporters, analysts, more opportunities to get out and get more reps and get more content that you get to be a part of. So it's giving jobs, it's giving opportunities, which we love.
Yeah, there was this I wish I remember the kid's last name, but he was a younger person playing in that game on YouTube, and they said he just started up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He loved the cross, played in the league down there, and then gets to go into PBLA. They say he's just embracing it, still learning as he goes. But it was so cool to see that the game is growing like that. And so I thought it was cool that a guy like him who probably could play football is deciding to play box lacrosse. Is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you mentioned, giving opportunities, like that's something that I think is so needed for sports to grow, because that's an area that, like basketball is a great example. If you don't play in the NBA, they also have Canadian basketball leagues. You can play overseas in other countries. There's the G League. There's all different levels that you can play, and giving access for fans also means giving access for players. So shout out to the PBLA for a much excited and anticipated debut, and we're looking forward to seeing how that continues to grow, especially since these are teams right in our backyard. This for you and I, Mike. But speaking of some teams that we have to keep an eye on and some opportunities, it's an opportunity to give out our 3 stars of the weekend. Not right now, after this break, more to come, as we are going to give out our daily dive 3 stars of the weekend for 3 players that we think had an exceptional weekend and have earned themselves a spot on our daily dive 3 stars list. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Daily Dive. Beat gets me every time, man. Gets me drumming, gets me it's like a nice midday, because it's noon here. It's earlier for people on different time zones, but it's like a nice midday pick me up. Because welcome back to Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington. We've got producer Mike. We were just jamming out during the commercial break a little bit as we had a chance to talk about the Professional Box Lacrosse Association, as well as recap NLO action. And it's important to remember the Daily Dive is covering all things lacrosse. Yes, we talk a lot of NLL. We also talk PLL. We also talk PBLA. We talk all things lacrosse. And so that being said, let's shift into our 3 stars of the weekend, taking a look at 3 athletes that we feel like performed exceptionally this past weekend. The first, and producer Mike, you talked about it, Nick DeMood. Despite that loss to the Rush, Patriots. I'm thinking of something else. Panther City LC goalie Nick DeMood, who saw 58 shots on goal in the game, including 15 shots being peppered by Robert Church, as Mike likes to say. Only 1 scored by Church, and did a fantastic job of holding the Rush overall to just 11 goals on the day. So our first star goes out to Nick DeMood. It's a mood.
He is a whole mood, man. Like I said, maybe he was part of the reason why I'm down on the Rush right now and kind of sulking. But yeah, it's insane. Like, your team, like, just give me 12 and we win. Like, just saying. If they can find their offense and this guy can play like this, that's not bad. It's not a bad recipe.
That's a valid point. You gave up 58 shots on goal. You save 11. I'm no mathematician, but 11 of 58 is a really good percentage. When you look at that, if you can consistently maybe cut down. Maybe it's not 58 shots every game. I'm sure Nick is like, I did my thing, but let's cut down on the number of shots I'm seeing. But if you can have a goalie in that defense that can hold a team to 11 goals, I agree with you. You should be able to get 12. You should be able to get enough to be able to win. Well, there was another player that did get his team enough to win, and more than enough to win. Josh Byrne, our second star of the week, goes to Buffalo Bandits. Josh Byrne with the 7 goals, 5 assists to pave the way for the Bandits in what became a shootout against the Halifax Thunderbirds. Josh, as you mentioned, playing up to some MVP caliber game right now.
I say Dane Smith. Now he's mad at this, but move over because Josh Byrne wants a co-MVP over here. These guys are playing very well, and Josh Byrne, wow. Talk about peppering. Here's a little bit of seasoning for the Thunderbirds because I knew they were going to need all that. And Josh Byrne said, "I got you. I got you."
Mm-hmm. And it's never a bad problem to have when two players, obviously it's still very early in the season, but two players that are already in that possible MVP conversation are on the same team. You talk about competing, like move over Dane Smith. I'm here, Josh Byrne. Obviously they have a show together. These are two guys that like to do exceptional things on and off the field for Bandit Land, and to be able to have them kind of competing for who's the guy who's leading the team. It's always been both of them. Never a bad problem to have, especially as we talk about on the other side with Panther City needing that offense. Buffalo's got 2 of the leading scorers and assistant facilitators in Josh Byrne and Dave Smith. Not bad. Well, we've talked some NLL and we've also talked some PBLA. So it's only fitting that our third star of the weekend goes to the PBLA side. We've got Ken Baker Printup, who scored the second goal for Jim Thorpe All-Americans, helped lift them as we were talking about the results from this past week, helped to lift them over the Syracuse Spark in that 15-12 league-wide debut on Thursday. And what a goal we saw for the second goal. That was a physical play at that. Mike, what did you see from Ken Baker Printup, our third star of the weekend?
Yeah, he was so nice. He has 2 last names. No, it's hyphenated. But I was watching that game, and I talked about the athleticism. There was a few plays from different games, but this is the one I was watching, and I saw this dude make. It's like whenever a quarterback makes an awesome throw and gets just blasted while doing so. That was this shot. Like this dude's got planted out of nowhere. I would show the video, but I don't want to get in the copyright thing. But just take a shot, gets destroyed, and pops right back up. Like, yeah, that was me. We're up 2-1, pal. That was incredible. I thought he deserved a little bit of just a little bit of a star, right? 1 star is good enough.
1 star is great. And you know what? As you mentioned, it's hard for any athlete when you're falling, you're off balance, to still have the composure and the core strength that you can finish out a pass, a shot, whatever that may be. So that's something that gets underestimated, like the ability to be falling down or off balance or getting hit, and you're still able to complete the play. And not only complete the play, score on the play. I'd pop back up too. I've popped back up in those situations too. Like, I got the last laugh. It's my shot going to the back of the net.
Weren't you good at soccer, Renee?
I was pretty good, to say the least.
Does someone ever come in and just dive at your legs and you hit a bicycle kick going on or something like that? Come on now.
Listen. As a 3-time All-American, I've had plenty of those plays where people were coming at my legs. So as we're talking Jim Thorpe All-Americans, I too was one.
You're not worthy.
And that's why I can speak on it, because I've had those experiences firsthand on the soccer field. That's where awesome. Someone's coming at you with a dirty play because all they're trying to do is keep you from scoring, and you're like, nope. It's the AI step over Ty Lue. It's like,
too good for you.
Too good for you. You can hit me with your best shot, but I'm gonna get the last and the biggest shot that's going back in the net. So shout out to our 3 stars of the weekend. That's Panther City goalie Nick Damoud, Josh Byrne of the Bandits, and over in the PBLA, Ken Baker Printup. Wow, what a weekend of action. What a way to kick off 2023. As always, be sure to check out all of the merchandise that we are selling, all the beanies and hoodies and hats we've got at the Daily Dive store in our social media bios. And if you're not already following us, be sure to follow at Daily Dive Lax to check out all that we're tweeting about, talking about, sharing, and all the updates each week on NLL, PBLA, PLL, all the lacrosse action that we're bringing you each and every week, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Daily Dive. Well, for my producer, Mike Karvelis, I'm Renee Washington, saying thank you so much for starting off your new year with us and being able to talk all things lacrosse. We'll be back tomorrow for more action, previews, and some great guests here on Daily Dive. Stay tuned for more. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Hasta mañana, amigos. See you tomorrow.